Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something that is completely invisible, totally weightless, and, well, entirely silent. Yet, it dictates our behavior in ways we barely even realize. You know, we often think of silence as just an absence, right? Just an empty space where words should be. But psychologically speaking, silence is an active, invisible force. It's a tool for tension, persuasion, and sometimes absolutely profound discomfort.
I want you to imagine a scenario for a second. You're asking someone a really important question, a question that truly matters. Maybe you're confronting your partner or negotiating a salary or just trying to figure out what someone actually thinks of you. You look them right in the eye, you ask the question, and then you wait. And nothing happens. No answer. Literally zero reaction. Just silence. At first, it seems harmless enough. A few seconds tick by. But then, it's like the silence starts changing the room. It gets heavier. And suddenly, you're acutely aware of your own heartbeat.
So the crucial point is that we are deeply uncomfortable with what silence forces us to imagine. Words, they communicate information, but silence communicates uncertainty. And historically, uncertainty is one of the most psychologically powerful forces out there. When you don't get an answer, your thoughts just accelerate. Did they even hear you? Are they mad? What are they thinking? Pretty quickly, that silence becomes so much heavier and more powerful than any spoken answer ever could be, simply because it forces your own mind to do all the heavy lifting.
Let's move into part 1, the biology of uncertainty, and take a look at our ancient instincts.
To really get this, we have to look under the hood at the mechanics of our brain. For most of human history, we were quite literally never designed to handle uncertainty. Missing information meant imminent danger. A rustle in the bushes? That could mean survival or death. A missing tribe member? Major danger signal. So the human brain evolved to constantly search for patterns and survival signals just to keep us safe. Now, looking at this timeline, we can see exactly how that ancient instinct translates to our lives today. We aren't exactly facing predators in the bushes anymore, but we do face social uncertainty. And the catch is, social uncertainty triggers those exact same ancient psychological systems. Our desperate search for survival signals has directly mapped onto modern social dynamics, right down to that digital anxiety we all feel.
Our brains simply cannot tolerate a vacuum. Because we literally cannot stand meaninglessness, any absence of information immediately kicks off frantic emotional activity. We just start manufacturing our own explanations. Like, if a friend is suddenly quiet, we think, well, maybe they're upset with me, or maybe they lost interest. Notice what's happening here. It isn't that the silence actually contains any real meaning. It's that your brain is desperately generating explanations to protect you from the unknown.
Which brings us to part 2, the pressure of empty space, and what happens when we break the normal rhythm.
Let's move to and see how this builds in a negotiation. Most conversations follow these invisible, totally predictable social rules. One person speaks, the other responds. It creates a nice rhythm, a sense of predictability and safety. But breaking that rhythm, that creates intense psychological pressure. Experienced negotiators understand this beautifully. The steps are incredibly simple. Present your offer, and then remain completely silent. Watch the other person fill the void. Because most people experience deep discomfort when a conversation just stops. The silence feels unresolved. It feels unfinished. And to escape that stillness, people will start speaking again. They'll offer compromises, they'll reveal extra information, dropping their own leverage. Not because anyone forced them to, but because they are desperately trying to escape the psychological pressure of that empty space. They're actually influencing themselves.
This contrast reveals exactly how we are wired to perceive power. On one side, you have someone who is emotional, reactive, maybe a bit impulsive. On the other side, someone who is calm, measured, and completely silent. Most observers will immediately perceive that second person as having more control, even before they know any of the facts. As human beings, we naturally associate emotional control with competence, status, and authority.
Throughout history, the individuals who managed to remain composed during times of uncertainty usually possessed greater confidence or greater resources, and silence absolutely amplifies this. A person who is perfectly comfortable without speaking just appears far more psychologically secure. Someone who desperately tries to fill every single pause, they appear much less certain. And honestly, whether this perception is actually accurate or not doesn't even matter, because this perception alone literally shapes our social reality. It changes how everyone else in the room behaves.
Let's dive into part 3, the digital void, and see how this applies to modern communication.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that today, silence feels more powerful than at any previous point in human history, mainly because we are just saturated with constant digital feedback, notifications, emails, likes, updates. Because all this attention feels so normal, its sudden absence feels completely extraordinary. Enter the read receipt. Viewed. No response. Objectively speaking, nothing happened. No attack occurred, no insult was delivered. Yet, the emotional impact of being left on read is surprisingly severe. People experience intense anxiety because that digital silence forces an interpretation, and almost every single time, we turn that interpretation inward, agonizing over whether we did something wrong.
And this is exactly how silence gets weaponized in modern society. We call it strategic silence. This is when someone intentionally withholds a response to create uncertainty, establish dominance, or maintain control. It is psychologically dangerous because it completely lacks direct aggression. No words are spoken, there's no obvious attack you can point a finger at. The target feels this immense discomfort, but they end up questioning their own sanity. They start wondering, am I overthinking this? Am I just being way too sensitive?
We have to remember that humans are social creatures. We survived through connection. Back in the day, isolation carried severe, life-threatening consequences. So when someone weaponizes silence against you, it hurts deeply because it completely bypasses logic and activates our most deeply buried, ancient fears. The fear of rejection, the fear of abandonment, the fear of insignificance. The silence itself isn't what causes the suffering, it's simply the key that unlocks the fears already living right beneath the surface.
Now, for our final section, Part 4, The Mirror of Truth and the Hidden Thoughts it Reveals.
While we so often think of silence as a way to hide things, the crazy paradox here is that it frequently exposes far more than speech ever could. Just think about it. Words can be rehearsed. They can be filtered, carefully edited, and perfectly managed to project a certain image. But silence? Silence creates a raw, completely unedited space. And within that empty space, hidden, unfiltered emotions naturally emerge. Awkwardness, confidence, anxiety, guilt, profound discomfort. When you finally stop talking, the absolute truth of a situation and the true emotions of the people in that room have nowhere left to hide.
Consider this. Silence does not simply reveal what another person is thinking. Very often, silence reveals what we are thinking. Silence is really just a mirror. Remember, we are meaning-making creatures. We are constantly constructing narratives. When the words disappear, that process doesn't just stop, it actually accelerates. The silence simply reflects our own insecurities, our own desires, and our deepest assumptions right back at us.
Most of us go through life believing that communication is all about speaking, but the most powerful moments in human life usually occur when the words disappear entirely. Because when the noise finally stops and all of our modern distractions are stripped away, people start hearing the things they spend their entire lives avoiding. Their own thoughts, their own fears, their own unfiltered truths. So the next time you find yourself deeply uncomfortable in a quiet room, ask yourself, what are you avoiding in the silence? Thank you for joining me on this explainer. I'll see you next time.